Okay, so today is April 20, 2018. This is the meeting of the Kubernetes CSI implementation group. First on the agenda, we have an item from Jan about attacher timeouts. Jan, do you want to talk about this?
Okay, I'm designing and thinking about CSI driver from Amazon, and I noticed that the attacher, the external CSI attacher for Kubernetes, doesn't post any timeouts in gRPC calls. So if Kubernetes wants to have something attached, then the driver can take as long as it wants. This is okay for most of the CSI drivers probably, but Amazon especially, in Amazon it can take hours, days, and maybe weeks to attach a volume because of its API design. So the way how it works now without the timeout, it works pretty well actually, because the attach detach controller monitors volume attachment object, and it sends timeouts to user, so nothing breaks. The only thing what's wrong is when user deletes a pod and we don't need the volume attached anymore, then the attacher is still trying to attach it and it's waiting until the operation completes. There is no way how to cancel this call. So I have one go routine doing nothing, waiting for the call to complete in my attacher. So this can be, I can easily fix the attacher to have a timeout. That's very simple. But it has some implications. If I call controller publish to a driver and Amazon takes its time and the attacher times out, then I expect, as attacher, I expect that the driver still tries to attach the volume. It doesn't cancel the attachment. And the attacher can take some exponential backoff and issue the same call again. And Amazon should either return success that the volume is attached or some error, or it can time out again because it's still waiting for the volume to attach. So this way, I don't have any any blocked go routines in the attacher. That's fine. But I expect that the driver continues attaching the volume after timeouts. I don't know if this is the right expectation.
Do we have a way to be able to cancel an operation at a future point in Amazon EBS API?
Not really. But that's Amazon weirdness. The driver can handle that. But the assumption should be the same for all the drivers in the CSI protocol. And another thing is when a user deletes a pod, Kubernetes doesn't need the volume attached anymore. The attacher got timeout from the last attempts to attach the volume, so it expects that the volume is still being attached, and now issues controller unpublish to cancel the attachment. It doesn't need the volume to be attached. And the expectation is that the driver will try to cancel the call. And again, this needs to be implemented for all drivers.
Is this behavior necessarily something we should implement on the attacher side? My concern is trying to figure out what the correct timeout should be. For some volumes, it might be longer than other. For some plugins, it might be longer than other plugins.
It's going to be configurable, of course, on the attacher side.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point.
But still, on the CSI side, I just call control publish, and either I can wait forever until it returns, or I can time out after some time. There is no way how to have asynchronous calls in CSI and monitor them.
Can you implement on the driver side some sort of timeout on
Yeah, I can, but
driver?
if the driver returns an error, then the expectation is that the volume is not attached and it will not be attached in the future.
Yeah.
The operation is complete, but it can take a long time to complete.
With the EBS volume, you have no way of knowing.
Yeah.
Can we leave the pending operation open as long as it takes weeks, days, and then when it completes, verify if it actually should be attached or not, and if it's not, then go and detach it?
Yes, in the driver, I can implement that.
Yeah.
But I have no way how to expose it in the CSI call.
Does it need to be exposed in the CSI call?
Well, if the client, that means the attacher, doesn't have any timeout, it waits forever, then I block the go routine forever. I can handle that, but it looks kind of ugly to me.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think there's a great answer here either way. The problem with timeouts is you could potentially end up with orphaned volumes. And the problem with waiting forever is it may, result in leaking go routines.
The attacher can make things right. For example, when the volume is attaching and the user doesn't want the volume to be attached anymore, it issues unpublished call, and it will issue the unpublished call until it gets a confirmation that the volume is really unpublished. And then it will delete the volume attachment objects. So it will wait until it gets confirmation from the driver that the operation is done, and then mark the operation as complete. It either deletes the volume attachment object or changes the status from the status.
If we're willing to live with potentially leaking go routines or have many go routines pending for these volumes, then we could just have the cleanup happen after the blocking call completes. Otherwise, we go with timeout and potentially have orphan volumes. I think they're both shitty options.
Well, the attacher can fix the orphan volumes, but it expects when it gets the timeout that the operation is still in progress and the driver is still trying, that it won't cancel the operation.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I can never attach a volume on Amazon, basically.
Yeah. And the thing is that it shouldn't cancel, right? Like, just because a timeout happens doesn't mean that the end user doesn't want this volume anymore. It's not until the PVC object is deleted that's a signal for us, okay, we no longer need this volume. Or sorry, not deleted, the volume attachment object is deleted.
Yes. And I think this behavior should be somehow covered in the CSI spec. I'm not sure it's there.
What could we do on the CSI side that would help in this case?
Well, if I understand gRPC correctly, then it's the client who sets the timeout. I'm sending this control publish call, and I'm waiting for 5 seconds.
Yep.
And both sides, like the client and the server, see this timeout.
Yep.
And we can add to the CSI spec then when this timer expires on either side, then we expect that the operations is still in the progress underneath. The driver still tries to fulfill the operation, and it's up to the client to retry the same operation to get the final result.
I see. I think the problem with that is some drivers may not be able to do this. For them,
they need to be idempotent anyway.
They need to be idempotent. That's true. So basically the suggestion is after the timeout expires, the driver will continue to attempt to complete this operation. And then if the operation comes back, you just report on the current status of it. Mm-hmm. And you only cancel it if the backend gives you a deterministic error, or another call comes along that says don't do that anymore, which would be the negative call, like controller unpublish.
And this is the same for other kind of errors, like when the Unix socket gets disconnected from whatever reason, the client doesn't know what was the result of the operation, and the only sane thing to do is to call it again and expect it idempotency.
Right. The calling again idempotency part is okay. I think the part which worries me is when does it actually stop trying? You don't want to try forever.
Yeah, and that's why we could propose that like control unpublish cancels previous control publish, and the publish cancels previous unpublished, and these kind of things. But this gets messy.
Yeah.
Because in some situations, it's just some operations are not revertible. Let's say if we publish the Ceph volume and it's going to the makeFS, it might take some time. We cannot cancel it and then restart that makeFS on on the volume.
Yeah, that's another nice use case. This case is in node publish. If we call makeFS, it can take some time, and the CSI volume plugin has 15 seconds timeout. So when this times out, and this makeFS takes more than 15 seconds, then we have the same problem on node publish and node stage.
Yeah. Well, it depends where you actually do, because I mean, what we do is in the control plane. Oh, sorry, control call. That's where we do the makeFS. So the provisioner.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, so the provisioner takes care of the longer timeout.
Okay.
I think I like this idea of, in order to do idempotency, you kind of have to expect that after a timeout, the driver continues to, finish its operation. But I don't know if that needs to be encoded in CSI, or we can just leave it open and say, let the driver decide. And that way, if a driver wants to implement this behavior, it's perfectly valid and it's allowed to do that. And if a driver doesn't want to implement this behavior for some reason, it doesn't have to.
I'm thinking, how should I change the attacher in this case?
So the attacher can have a timeout. The timeout should be configurable, and then the driver that's deploying the external attacher can configure that to whatever is reasonable. And everything else stays the same. And then inside the driver, it can decide what happens when a timeout happens. It can decide whether the operation continues, or it can decide to abort the operation. It's the decision of the driver author what happens, and whatever makes sense for their driver.
Okay, so the attacher calls control publish, this times out, And the attacher doesn't know if the volume is attached or not.
Correct.
So it issues the same call again.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's up to the driver, it's probably go to timeout again.
Right. So it's up to the driver if it is going to terminate the old call after the timeout and start a new one, or it can leave the old one pending and then just pick up that one when a retry comes in. So it's up to the driver to implement that. And
okay.
As far as the attacher is concerned, after it's the volume attachment object is deleted, then if there was a timeout, it can issue a controller unpublished to clean up things. Actually, that'll happen anyway. Whenever the volume attachment object is deleted, you issue a controller unpublished.
Yes.
And that'll give you a hopefully concrete result.
Okay. This is also the way how it's already implemented in the attacher. It just doesn't have the timeout. So I will probably change the context, and that's going to be fixed.
Cool. Very interesting issue. AWS is always fun.
Yeah, it's different to all other cloud APIs.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right, cool. Thanks for bringing that up. Next up, sorry, go ahead.
Thanks for decision.
Oh yeah, of course. PRs that need attention. Update doc. So Luis is not with us today. Hopefully we have an update here next week. Number 49, should we cherry pick this back to 0.20? Number 49 for external provisioner is capacity bytes. I think this has already been cherry picked.
This was, I think there was a new version, 0.2.1.
Yeah.
And this was put in, and I think Luis is actually putting in another one today that makes the printed capacity look nicer, because this PR made it look kind of not nice.
What was the comment about breaking compatibility you just deleted?
So this particular PR is changing a behavior of the external provisioner. Previously, the external provisioner, when it created a persistent volume object, it would put the capacity as the same as the PVC. Now with this change, it uses the capacity that's returned by the driver inside the PV object. So that means that the PVC and PV can have different capacity.
Okay.
So instead of putting this PR into 0.20, we decided we're going to cut a 0.21 release and put that in there.
Okay. But that doesn't break anything. That's just a fix.
Sorry, the breaking part is if the driver previously was not CSI spec compatible. So if the driver before was returning a capacity that was lower than the requested value before, we would not reject that, and now we are rejecting those.
Yeah, but that's kind of fixed. It's not a not a new feature, not compatibility issue.
I mean, if nothing else, we're just trying to get into the, like, instead of always replacing the existing version, let's try to be better about versioning. So
yeah, okay, I'm fine with picking this or whatever it is.
So I'm going to go ahead and mark that as green since that's done. Bugs that need attention, FS type in storage class. I don't think Vlad is with us today. He's still traveling, so we'll get an update from him once he gets back. This one was resolved and cherry-picked, so we can stop tracking it. CSI end-to-end test occasionally flakes. This was still happening, so Luis said he would investigate it to see what was going on. It's the first test there, and it's still a little flaky.
Back on that FS group issue, Are we going to have something similar for supplemental group?
I don't believe so. I don't know enough about that. Do you know, Jan?
I think it's handled by the same code, at least in volume plugins. So we get both by the same patch.
I see. Yeah, I don't know, Brad. I might have to check with Vlad.
Okay.
Or someone.
Well, all the volume plugins use the same code. So
Yeah, that's what I thought.
either all of them are broken or it's already there.
Okay, let's go on to the next item then. PR in CSI test, CSI sanity. David's going to take a look at this. David, did you get a chance to review this?
Yeah, I haven't looked at it again today, but I did a review and
Okay,
looks like
perfect.
they haven't replied or anything. So
Cool, thanks. You could probably move that to the PR section. Tasks for Q2. We got 5 minutes. Anybody want to give an update on any changes since the last meeting? I think Felipe is with us today. So Felipe, any updates from your end?
Hi. No updates yet. Haven't started anything.
Okay, no worries. Brad, I think Luis said he's going to send out a proposal for some of this unowned driver stuff. You should probably sync up with him online.
Okay, yeah, that's what I was curious about. I was hoping to get some information.
Okay. All right, so I don't think there's too many other updates here. Sounds like Jan is already working on the AWS driver, so we can mark that orange. And we have some unassigned items at the bottom.
Well, working. SIG AWS is kind of slow.
Yeah.
They are still promising there will be meetings about CSI and external cloud provider and whatever, and nothing happened.
That's really annoying. Okay, keep us updated.
Sure.
And then finally, GCE PD end-to-end test got merged, I believe. I got approved at least. Let's see what the current status of that is. It got merged. So currently, this test has an issue with permission. So it currently, I believe, is disabled. Is that correct, David?
yeah, it skips if you run it by yourself, and it has a featured flag, so it will be like skipped in CI automatically.
Okay, and then once the associated issue is fixed, it'll start running automatically.
Yep.
Cool. We'll go ahead and mark that green, and then with that, we'll stop tracking the 1.10 items and only track these. All right, cool. That's all I have on the agenda. Is there anything else anybody wants to talk about? All right, cool. Then we'll reconvene Wednesday next week, and have a good weekend. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.